Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stan Major, and the name of the program, of course, is Wynn's Newsline. And as we have been mentioning for the past couple of days, this evening, during the first hour of our program, we are going to repeat the much talked about and somewhat controversial program that I recorded outside Raiford Prison approximately 3 weeks ago. We began the program about 9:30 in the morning with the 10 o'clock time element for the execution of convict John Spenkelink, and we recorded through the 10 o'clock execution time through what turned out to be the 10:18 official death time of John Spenkelink following his electrocution, and till about 10 minutes past that particular time segment. So this is the program as you heard it on the same evening of the execution of convicted killer John Spenkelink. It's 9:35 in the morning this Friday morning, and this is Stan Major, standing just near a group of about 50 demonstrators who are standing across the highway from Raiford Prison near Stark, Florida. As I say, it is about 9:35 this morning, Friday morning, and as of now, the countdown toward the execution of convict and convicted murderer John Spenkelink is just 25 minutes away. We've just arrived here on the scene, and I'll try to describe for you what it looks like. Of course, the press is very prominent. There are television crews from all the networks, and there are local television news crews from Tallahassee, from Gainesville, from Tampa, and from other areas in the state of Florida, also from Miami. At this time, there are a group of about 25 demonstrators who are singing. You can hear them in the background. They are holding on to each other with their right arms raised, making a clenched fist, and they're singing a particular song with regard to doing away with the death penalty. There have been rumors floating around since we arrived here a few minutes ago that there has been a stay, but we have no formal word on that. The demonstrators have not received any word, and I would assume they would be some of the first to know, along with the members of the press. Raiford is located in a very attractive area of northern Florida. The flight up here, especially from Gainesville, was quite pleasing to the eye, with the many woods and the lakes, spotted lakes, and the greenery that you can see from the air. But of course, once you get within the range of Raiford Prison, the scenery changes quite differently to your eye. This Wynn's Newsline program is going to come from you from in front of Raiford Prison as we count down the minutes until 10 a.m. this Friday morning, when the execution of John Spenkelink is scheduled. Evidently, these demonstrators have been here for some time. Many of them look like they have been here at least overnight. Some of them appear to be very tired, although there's still a lot of exuberance. Many of them are young, but not as young as, let's say, the Vietnam demonstrators were back in the 60s. It seems like the age is probably somewhere in the mid-20s to the late 20s or early 30s. Many of these people probably did take part in the Vietnam War demonstrations, the anti-war demonstrations, back in the late 60s and in the early 70s. More members of the press are filing over now as the minutes tick down. The demonstrators, as I face Raiford Prison, which, as I say, is across the highway here, I see a line of law enforcement vehicles, sheriff's vehicles primarily, along with Florida Highway Patrol. There are police officers who are lined up in front of the vehicles. They're facing the demonstrators across the street. Evidently, the line, as far as the demonstrators are concerned, is behind a mesh fence, a wire mesh fence, and behind the highway, which goes in front of Raiford Prison. On the other side of the Sheriff's and Florida Highway Department vehicles, where the law enforcement officials are lined up, and many of them smoking cigarettes and watching the demonstrators. Just behind them, of course, is a huge grass yard and the entrance to Raiford Prison, which is probably about 50 to 75 yards straight in front of me as I look at the prison. I hear no sounds at this time emanating from the prison, but that may be due to the fact that the demonstrators here are predominant in making their noise. The group of demonstrators are located off to the right in a clump of trees, and off to my left, as I face the prison, are a great number of vehicles, many of them press vehicles. There are television wagons from all over the country, and especially the state of Florida. There is a press area that has been set up, and there is even an instantaneous microwave unit, which I assume has something to do with feeding telephone calls or possibly microwave television transmissions and radio transmissions to wherever. It's one of the most unusual instantaneous setups of a microwave unit I've ever seen. There are some campers here, several campers. People in the campers look like they have been here for some time and are prepared to stay for some time. Of course, it could be that there might be another last-minute stay here. We have no formal word as yet. And right now on Wins Newsline, it is 9:41 on this Friday morning, this fateful day. And we are just over 15 minutes away from the 10 o'clock execution time that has been set by Florida state officials. We will be back to describe more in detail of what it is like to stand outside Raiford Prison, where the eyes of the world and the state of Florida are focused at this hour at 9:42 in the morning. This is Stan Major on Wins Newsline. Major back on Wednesday Newsline in front of Raiford Prison. There seem to be two separate groups of demonstrators here. Groups of about 25 to 30 to possibly 50, and they are separated by about 30 or 40 feet. They're singing two different songs. Television cameras, of course, are rolling. There's one young man, shirtless, sitting in front of a fire and throwing leaves onto the fire. And this is the scene in front of Raiford Prison at 15 minutes before 10 o'clock. Sitting around in a circle. They are sitting. The other group is standing, holding each other very close. These people are young, middle-aged, old, several ministers, a couple of priests among them, some black, some white, some young, some old. And they are not a very happy-looking group of people at this time. Dispatched by Richard Whitcomb, Channel 7 News, who's up here covering a particular news story. Let's get a little closer to hear what the minister is saying here.
And we want God right now that He would have mercy on all of us that are here. But it's certainly upon the soul of Brother Lee. We need to ask any other minister.
Now there's another man who is rather excited, who's leaning over the wire mesh fence and shouting at the sheriff's officers and law enforcement officials who are across the way. Let's see if we can get a little closer to him and see what he's saying. And when we came over to him, he'd stopped talking. Now the other group that's standing up and with their arms raised into the air, singing "Will Shall Overcome." Singing continues. It is now 9:47 in the morning. This is Stan Major on the Winds Newsline, and we're talking to you in front of Raiford Prison this Friday morning. Our program originating from here. You might be interested. When we flew in with Dick Lauder of WINZ and with Dale Wise, a reporter who's covering this, we actually landed on a grass prison strip, which is very well kept, and Dick Lauder was very complimentary about this particular strip. It is on the other side of the highway, and we were met when we taxied up by a van with two prison guards, and they were very strict with us. We were not allowed to deplane until we fully identified ourselves. And then we were taken to the prison van, put in it, and although we could have walked to the area of the press tent and the demonstrations in just a few moments, we were taken in the van by the prison guards right down here to the area, which is, I've told you, is directly across from the entrance to Raiford Prison near Stark, Florida. The time now, according to my watch, is about 9:48, and still no word, no official word. As far as we know at this time, at 9:48 on Friday morning, the execution of convicted murderer John Spenkelink will take place. We will be right back. Stan Major on Winds Newsline in front of Raiford Prison in northern. We better hold off on this because there are 3 police officers who are moving into the area of the demonstrators now, and I don't know whether there's going to be some trouble. The press is beginning to cluster around. I see no sign that there's going to be any particular trouble here. Perhaps, however, we can get a little near this one particular area where there is further demonstration going on right now.
You got 7 minutes to argue.
I just had to move out of the way of the Bradford County Sheriff's Department. The police are moving in now, and I think I'll move a little bit out of the way. They evidently are after going toward one particular person, and I don't know what's happening. There is a minister now who is standing in the center of the group that is sitting down that was singing a while ago. And he's saying a prayer. And the time is 10 minutes before 10 o'clock.
Fill in all forms. We ask peace.
All right, 10 minutes before the hour, we will take this break now. This is Stan Major in front of Raiford Prison at 10 minutes before the 0 hour for John Spenkelink on Wednesday News Line. This is Stan Major back on Wednesday News Line. Friday morning, just a few minutes before 10 o'clock. My watch, which is totally unofficial, says we're coming up on 9:52. There's still no word out front of Raiford Prison here with regard to a stay of execution. And needless to say, the tension is building here. Many of the demonstrators are now forming a huge circle, holding hands at the behest of one of the ministers. And the press continues to cluster around, and the demonstrations continue. I haven't seen any familiar faces, those of Ramsey Clark or of Mrs. Spenkelink, John Spenkelink's mother, or other familiar faces here. The few familiar faces that I've seen have been members of the national television news media. They're quite recognizable, and they include Peter Burns and also Kenley Jones of NBC News is here. Richard Whitcomb, as I mentioned a moment ago, is here. Richard Schlesinger is up here, I believe. I think I passed him. And now the circle has enlarged to about twice the size. It's a large circle now. It would take you about a minute to walk around it. And now the hand clapping, the singing, old spiritual, as we are less than 10 minutes away from the execution of the first man to unwillingly die in the United States in 12 years, John Spenkelink. Of the time element involved in the situation here. Again, as I look at my watch, it says 9:54. That is 6 minutes away from the scheduled execution of John Spenkelink here at Raiford Prison, which I can see off to the right as I face this demonstration. An indication of the time element involved is the television news reporters are doing what will be their stand-up intro reports to the 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock news. And that always is a tip-off that things are getting down to the 0 hour. There are one or two people among the demonstrators who are seeing like they are kind of out of it. The minister just said the lady who led the last song, The Spiritual, has a son on death row here at Raiford Prison.
We love his family. And we're visiting them. And the reason that we're in this service is to show all
There's a sheriff's vehicle, which is has its siren going now, and I don't know why. We'll move over this way, away from the demonstrators who have seemed quiet down right now. There is very little activity. I don't attribute it to a giving up of hope by the demonstrators, but it is interesting that as we count down the last few minutes here until the electrocution of John Spenkelink, there is very little activity among the demonstrators. Most of the activity at this time is among the press. The group that was holding each other very closely, a group of about 30 people, are swinging back and forth, and they are slowly, sadly, swinging back and forth. Now they're breaking into another chant, and it's just a couple of minutes before the fateful hour for one John Spenkelink. And we're going to stay on the air here. In case you've just joined me, this is Stan Bajer on the Winds Newsline, and we are standing in front of Raiford Prison near Stark, Florida, this morning at 9:57, according to my watch, which would mean that the execution of John Spenkelink is just 3 minutes away. And we will see what the reaction of the crowd is here, the demonstrators, as the 10 o'clock hour comes, and we will see what their reaction is when they receive official word. As I told you earlier, there was a rumor that there had been a stay, but evidently that rumor is false. And here at a couple of minutes before 10 o'clock, some people are now lining up in front of the fence, looking directly at the prison. And a couple of the demonstrators are quite aggravated by what's happening. The other demonstrators almost seem to have given up hope. Very little is being said. They are still in two groups. One group sitting on the ground in a large circle, and they are holding hands. And the other group is simply very close together, holding each other as they count down now the seconds. As my watch says, 9:58. One person has broken out of the crowd. A woman is very upset, and very upset for a moment at the news media. And when you feel as you do, as this particular woman who is middle-aged, being led away by another gentleman, when you feel as frustrated and as exasperated as one might feel in a situation like this, where you're standing in front of a prison and know that a man is about to go to his death, and you don't agree with that, you can take your frustrations out on almost anybody that gets near you, and this particular lady decided that she would, and she has been led away. The demonstrators continue to attempt to chant, to enthusiastically chant, "Death row must go, death row must go," and the slow beating of a drum, and it is 10 o'clock. We have no as yet. It is now 10 o'clock, and I'm looking at Raiford Prison, which is about the prison block. The buildings are about the length of a football field from where I am. I'm leaning up against the wire mesh fence, and across the way, as a semi-trailer truck goes by, the road in front of Raiford Prison are a line of police officers amounting to about 25 or 30, and police cars which are lined up all the way along the area in front of the prison. Ladies and gentlemen, we here in this area have no official word, but it is 1 minute after 10 o'clock according to my watch, and it is to be assumed that John Spenkelink is being put to death at this moment in the electric chair in the prison. And we will await until wait for the official word. Some people are gathering around a radio now. And there's a report on the radio now on one of the network hourly broadcasts concerning the execution and the fact that John Spenkelink should be strapped in the electric chair. And ladies and gentlemen, it is evident at this time that John Spenkelink is going to go to his death here in the electric chair at Raiford Prison. Until we get some clarification on exactly what has happened, we will take another break here. Stan Major in front of Raiford Prison on WINS Newsline. This is Stan Major standing in amongst the demonstrators across from Raiford Prison. It is now just 2 minutes after 10 o'clock. Some of the demonstrators are crying. Some of them are leaving the area. The elderly black woman who was singing the spiritual song is being held up. She's weeping. She is the woman who has the mother who has someone on death row here. She led the spiritual a while ago that you may have heard. She is now being held up. She's crying tearfully, being held up by members of her family. Could I ask you for just a second how you feel at this moment, sir?
Well, it's a very dark time. I'm 20-odd years ago officiated as chaplain for 3 executions, and it's a sin.
What is your name and your affiliations?
I'm a Methodist minister, Gene Parks.
Where are you from?
Jacksonville.
Thank you. Methodist minister just walked by. And the demonstrators are reacting in various ways to the fact that evidently by this time, at 4 minutes after 10 o'clock, John Spenkelink has been electrocuted. Some of the members of the press are moving away. There will be an area over where the press has gathered, near the press tent here outside of Raiford Prison in northern Florida, where the witnesses to the execution of John Spenkelink will gather, and they will be asked questions, asked to give their opinion, asked to give their eyewitness description of the electrocution as it took place about 5 minutes ago at Raiford Prison. And I'm now making my way with other members of the press away from the demonstration, back over toward the press tent, in expectation of the witnesses who will soon be brought out of the prison and brought over here to face the news media. The it's hard to estimate how many members of the news media are here. The best estimate at this time would be a couple of hundred. The helicopter is, I believe, leaving the prison area. I don't know if that is of any significance. It is 5 minutes after 10 o'clock, and helicopters just left the prison compound here. I have no idea who was on the helicopter. It doesn't look like it's a press helicopter, but as I say, I don't have any idea exactly what that's all about. If we sound like we're a little bit hesitant at this moment, it's because of the fact that we really don't know what has transpired. We assume that at 5 or 6 minutes after 10 o'clock on this Friday morning that John Spenkelink has indeed been sent to his death under the death warrant signed by Governor Bob Graham of Florida. We still have no official word here, and we've been delayed. It is now about 22 minutes after 10 o'clock. The only activity is a press helicopter. It keeps hovering above us, taking the same pictures that has been taken for the past 20 minutes. If the helicopter were not here, you would be able to hear, I believe, if we could pick it up, the prisoners in Raiford Penitentiary who have been screaming and making sounds for about the past few minutes. But as I say, this helicopter that one of the news organizations has hired has been ordered, evidently, at great expense to hover over the scene and continue to hover and continue to hover, and it's very difficult for us to hear. But once in a while, in the past few minutes here, at about 20 to 22 minutes after 10 o'clock on this Friday morning, inside Raiford Prison, members of the press who are about a football field length away were able to hear the prisoners screaming, shouting, making noise. I see no repetition of the fires, the burning of the bed sheets, the burning of the mattresses that were evident the other day. I just saw some things are being thrown out of the second building. I can't quite make out. We're just not close enough to be able to figure out exactly what's going on. Evidently, the execution is over, and John Spenkelink is dead. There is a troop, a very strange phenomenon for this type of a day. There is a troop of people in uniform who are standing at parade arrest in front of the prison. They marched out, and I cannot tell from here whether the troop is male or female. They may be female. They are in uniform. Maybe it is a combination of male and female. They marched out like a bugle corps, and they're standing now at parade arrest in front of the prison. And it has lent some confusion to the situation that's going on. We are expecting momentarily to have eyewitnesses to the execution of John Spenkelink here at the press tent, where the cameras have been set up, the tape recorders are ready to roll, and the various members of the news media are standing by. There are, as I say, a couple of hundred members of the news media, and they are gathering around now, awaiting some final word. We were told we might be able to get to a telephone to make a phone call back to WINC in Miami. It is virtually impossible. The phones that are here, the few of them are, well, they're just, nobody's going to give up. They've probably been sitting on them for days waiting for this moment. And now that the moment is here, they're certainly not going to give up these particular telephones, so it's been a minor communication problem with us. Now, in front of the press area, a white van is driving up, and evidently some of the witnesses to the execution of John Spenkelink are in that van. The van has come from the prison. It looks as if I see pool reporters the reporters who were inside. And this is the first official word. There were pool reporters inside as witnesses, and there were also witnesses from the state legislature and other witnesses, laymen, and they are back here now, and this is the first official contact with anybody who has been inside the prison, and they are scattering about various places, and we don't know if anybody's going to be an official spokesman. Certainly somebody should be a pool spokesman for this group, and they are going to make an announcement at this time.
Are you ready to go?
And I don't know if we'll be able to hear it. We'll try to pick it up.
TV in Tampa.
Down in front.
Standing by, there is a woman who's making an announcement.
The first surge of electricity came at 10:12. The doctor checked him 3 times. The last time was at 10:18. He took his pulse, and he checked his eyes, and I guess that would be the official time of death.
What time, Moni?
10:18 was the final check by the doctor. The blinds in the room were open at 10:11. Spenkelink was bound in the chair. He was bound around the mouth. He had no opportunity to make a final statement, and prison officials haven't told us why he was able to make a final statement. He simply looked at us, and he looked terrified. There was nothing said. They flipped the rubber hood down over his face, and immediately afterwards, there was a surge of electricity. He only really moved once. You could see his hands clench and his leg move. After that, there was really no perceptible movement from him. On top of his hood, there was a metal knob on top. He had a towel around his neck, keeping him back on the chair. His arms were back like this, with straps around the chair. He had a strap around his waist. On his right leg, about mid-calf, it was like laced on the other metal piece of connector. At the end, the final check, the doctor lifted up the hood to check his eyes. We couldn't see much. What we could mostly see was that I could see his cheeks were very bulged. I couldn't see his eyes. But the doctor shone a light in his eyes. He was wearing just plain blue pants and a white shirt rolled up.
This is the first official word that we've had with regard to the death of John Spenkelink. I don't know if you were able to hear it. Evidently, the woman is a member of the press corps who was in the pool. The number of few reporters who were admitted to the area as witnesses. And what we now have is 2 helicopters hovering over us here, evidently news helicopters of some kind, and they are hovering, waiting to pick up film or tape to rush back to who knows where. The press is all gathered around. The news person is giving further details, although, to be perfectly frank with you, not much information is forthcoming from her lips with regard to the actual electrocution itself. The time of death being placed at 10:18, and the fact that John Spenkelink was not allowed to make a final statement of any kind, and the very interesting statement that the young woman mentioned about there being sheer terror on his face at the end, as could well be expected. The planes and helicopters continue to hover around now here outside Raiford Prison. As I look down toward the north and the wooded area where the demonstrators were, it is readily evident that the demonstrations have broken up. There are a few diehards who are still in that given area, but at this time, most of the couple of hundred demonstrators who were in the wooded area that we described earlier on Wednesday Newsline have gone their way. Cars are beginning to leave both the press side of the compound here and also the demonstrators' side. And the police are still lined up across the road. They are still facing the area where the demonstrators were. There are about 25 police cars. There are about 35 police officers, sheriff's department officers, prison officials, I assume, other members of law enforcement, and they continue to stand vigil. And the parade of uniformed persons over across the green grass, about 75 yards from where I'm standing now, continues their particular vigil. They came out about 15 minutes ago after the electrocution. I don't know where they were. I don't know what their purpose is in being there. They are in tan uniforms of some kind, and as I say, we're just too far away here to be able to discern exactly what that is all about. We'll take it. I don't know if you could hear that. That was one of the unhappy demonstrators who was very vitriolic and screaming obscenities at the members of the press here, saying that we were murderers, and he hoped that we were, quote, goddamn happy about what has transpired. Of course, to be perfectly frank with you, if we were to take a poll of the various members of the press here, I would guarantee you that 90% of them probably don't particularly favor the death penalty and probably are a little emotionally shook up at this time with regard to the particular story that they are covering. And that's just a guesstimate, having been there myself. And I can tell you that that probably is the way that most of the reporters feel. This is not a circus atmosphere by any stretch of the imagination. This is not the kind of thing you would see in an Italian movie. It is a very subdued and very quiet gathering of the press. In fact, probably about the most subdued and most quiet news story I have ever seen covered by this number of members of the news media, television, radio, newspapers, etc. And I think that that in itself speaks to the way that most of the reporters who are here feel about this particular story. They're not particularly happy about having to cover it. They know they do have to cover it, and that's about it. The witness, who's a spokesman for the pool reporters, is continuing to give the reporters information, although I don't know, by virtue of what she said in the first few minutes, I don't know how much more information they could glean from her, but they are continuing to question her, and as reporters often do, they will probably continue to question her for a long, long time. There is another person over here who is making statements. That is one of the demonstrators who is now upset about what has happened. And I don't think that it's going to develop to anything. A plane has just landed on the airstrip in front of the prison, and we don't know whether it's a press plane or whether it's flying here to pick up some of the eyewitnesses who were the official witnesses to the execution of John Spenkelink here. Evidently it is a press plane, and with the cameras getting out, and I'm afraid he's a little late. The whole story is really over at this stage. It is now after 10:30. It is 10:37, and the execution of John Spenkelink has taken place. And we are going to wrap up this live on-the-spot coverage in front of Raiford Prison on a very sunshiny, but in many ways a very subdued and very emotional and very sad Friday morning. This is Stan Major in front of Raiford Prison near Stark, Florida, on Winds Newsline.
Then one of the judges of the city stood forth and said, "Speak to us of crime and punishment." And he answered, saying, "It is when your spirit goes wandering upon the wind, that you, alone and unguarded, commit a wrong unto others, and therefore unto yourself. And for that wrong committed must you knock and wait a while, unheeded, at the gate of the blessed. Like the ocean is your God-self, it remains forever undefiled, and like the ether it lifts but the wing. Even like the sun is your God-self, it knows not the ways of the mole, nor seeks it the holes of the serpent. But your God-self dwells not alone in your being. Much in you is still man, and much in you is not yet man, but a shapeless pygmy that walks asleep in the mist, searching for its own awakening. And of the man in you would I now speak, for it is he, and not your God-self, nor the pygmy in the mist, that knows crime and the punishment of crime. Oftentimes have I heard you speak of one who commits a wrong, as though he were not one of you, but a stranger unto you and an intruder upon your world. But I say that even as the holy and the righteous cannot rise beyond the highest, which is in each one of you, so the wrongdoer cannot do wrong without the hidden will of you all. You cannot separate the just from the unjust and the good from the wicked, for they stand together before the face of the sun, even as the black thread and the white are woven together. And if any of you would punish in the name of righteousness and lay the axe upon the evil tree, let him see to its roots. And verily he will find the roots of the good and the bad, the fruitful and the fruitless, all entwined together in the silent heart of the earth. And you, judges, who would be just, what judgment pronounce you upon him who, though honest in the flesh, yet is a thief in spirit? And you who would understand justice, how shall you, unless you look upon all deeds in the fullness of light? Only then shall you know that the erect and the fallen are but one man, standing in twilight between the night of his pygmy self and the day of his God-self. And that the cornerstone of the temple is not higher than the lowest stone in its foundation.
John Spenkelink was electrocuted on Friday morning, May 25th, 1979 at 10:18. He was pronounced dead. And that's the program that we recorded outside Raiford Prison that morning. We will take a break for CBS News, a break for local news. When we come back, we will go to an open forum for the next hour on Winds Newsline with Stan Major. Stay tuned.
At 9:40 on your dial, this is WINZ Miami, Florida's first and foremost 24-hour news and information station.